is going to be Marquette University taking on Lakehead University. And here we can see Marquette having had their Hunter banned away. They now have Rogue, Warlock, and Paladin remaining. And taking a look at Lakehead, their Priest has been banned. That leaves them with Warlock, Warrior, and Mage. And taking a closer look at archetypes for Marquette University, it's an odd Paladin, it's an even Warlock, and it is an odd Rogue, but with some more mech techs. So kind of excited to get into that one. That looks a little bit interesting. And then from Lakehead, they have an even Warlock. They have an odd Warrior, but not a taunt odd Warrior, just your standard odd control Warrior. And then they have a straight up big bad Mage deck.
Yeah, it looks like it's the age-old question of control versus aggro. Who will reign supreme? I'm actually genuinely shocked that Marquette did not ban out the Warrior, that they instead banned out the Priest, which is a bit confusing to me because I think the Warrior is actually favored against every single one of their decks except for the Hunter. So
yeah.
it is a little weird that they would ban out the Priest, but maybe they felt as if Priest was a little bit more favored into something like Warlock and Paladin than they would have felt the Warrior was favored into. So that may have been their kind of idea behind banning out the Priest.
And I know that I have trouble counting, but it looks to me like the Hunter does not have anything above 6 mana, but also is a Death Rattle
this is a
Cube Hunter.
Death Rattle Cube Hunter
with Leroy Jenkins.
With Leroy Jenkins that curves out at Savannah High Main. This is not, it doesn't play Katharina.
Whew, that would have been spicy. We don't get to see it, though, unfortunately. But some interesting stuff on both sides here. And we can take a look at the Marquette University roster. And it is going to be Labino, Medieval Jedi, and Thegman 00. Supply chain management, arts and sciences, and nursing for these three gentlemen.
And there they are. See, even in the open division, they want to rep that team spirit. I love it. It's not just varsity that gets the jerseys or the cool, you know. Oh, look at the bucket hat. I have a bucket hat. I love bucket hats.
You do. You do have a bucket hat.
I love bucket hats. They're my favorite. Let's go, Marquette. Of course I'm rooting for you now. But we also got to preview Lakehead. And from Lakehead, we've got Goldie, Jason Velho, and Devios with biomolecular science, mechanical engineering, and biomolecular science. No bucket hats over here, so I can't root
No
for them.
bucket hats, but
very nice decorative pillows in the
clearly
background.
they've gotten the memo that black is slimming on camera. I like unity and precision and perfection, but mostly unity when it comes to teams. And these guys got the memo. They showed up all wearing black. They look stage ready. Very nice for them. And Marquette University from Madison, Wisconsin. Lakehead from St. Louis, Ontario. Obviously, I'm from the north, so the north region, kind of my home region. I'm excited to see these two schools get to duke it out. But particularly, I want to talk about this rogue from Marquette University. This is an odd rogue, but it's an odd rogue with war gear and Mecharoo.
Yeah, it's got a lot of mech synergy, and it's also got some weapon synergy. So it's running Nightmare Amalgams on top of War Gear and Mecharoos. I believe it also has, I believe that's just it for the mech engine.
They've got Zilliax.
Yeah, they've got the Zilliax.
Course.
But they've also got a copy of Shadowblade, which is very interesting to me. And we're actually going to see it here in our first game.
I swear they don't tell us what the first decks are that people are going to play. We just keep getting lucky. So
no, they tell me. Tommy comes in my ear and lets me know. So I guess you're just out of the loop.
They like you better than me.
I
That's
mean,
fine.
Of course, who doesn't?
That's fine.
Go ahead and tweet at Team Taspa how much you like me more than Cora.
I don't have a problem with that.
Or go to facebook.com/Team Taspa and write an article about how you like me more than Cora.
Of self-worth, I promise. All right, but you were saying that you're really surprised Marquette did not ban the Warrior for Lakehead.
Yeah.
I think it is just straight up favored versus everything that they have left because the Hunter was, of course, banned away. So odd Control Warrior versus odd Rogue doesn't really matter what version of odd Rogue it is like gallivanting through daisies for the odd Warrior. You hero power, you shield slam a Henge Clan Thug, you hero power some more, and eventually the Rogue just can't touch you. Usually.
And then sometimes you play a Vicious Fledgling and it goes, I'm a flappy bird.
In the flappy world.
I don't even remember what the rest of the lyrics were. It's something about adapting.
I'm almost certain
passion.
it's not life in flapness is fantastic, but I would write it that way.
You can send it face.
Or send it any place.
Or send it any place. But if it's not face, I don't know where you're sending it.
Well, we're going to see that Vicious Fledgling coming down on the next turn. And already, Lakehead has answers. They have Reckless Flurry, they have Brawl. Incredibly important in this matchup, especially if they don't have, you know, Fiery War Axe, which 9.5 times out of 10 they don't. That's a card that you're just not seeing be played in Odd Warrior nowadays.
So yeah, they had this pseudo answer with the Reckless Flurry. The only issue is they're going to have to wait till at least one more turn, so they're going to have to put this taunt minion in the way. But the Vicious Fledgling can actually get out of the range of this Reckless Flurry, so it may have to be more reliant on the Brawl trying to clean it up. So there is potential for Marquette to just kind of run away with this game if this Vicious Fledgling
there absolutely is. And they have some strong follow-up as well. They found the Henge Clan Thug. They have a Deadly Poison. In the deck, they do have Leroy Jenkins. They do not have Myra's Unstable Element. You have to make cuts somewhere for 2 copies of Nightmare Amalgam, 2 copies of the Vicious Fledglings, the War Gear, the Mecharoos, and that's just going to come from Cobalt Scalebane, from Myra's Unstable Element.
Yeah, Myra's becomes less powerful with the Cold Blood nerf, because a lot of times you would Myra's, hopefully have a minion on the board, and then try and stick as many Cold Bloods to push as much damage as possible. Now that you don't have access to Cold Blood, it means that you're not going to be able to push as much damage quickly as possible. And they're going very minion heavy. I think would have rather seen the dagger this turn, but it looks like they're just going very minion heavy here. This gets punished by Reckless Flurry and Brawl, so...
Divine Shield means that the Vicious Fledgling does not get cleared up by the Reckless Flurry. And there is still a chance that it survives through the Brawl, but it is now like a 1 in 6 because Marquette did put so much pressure on board this turn.
Well, if it survives through the Brawl, this could get really dicey. I think they're going to go Coin Brawl, though. I think it's like one of the only plays here.
Yeah, unless they're feeling really lucky and they want to coin Super Collider, swing into the Vicious Fledgling, and hope that it hits the SI7 agent.
No, I really wish Marquette could have played around that by putting the SI7 agent on a different side of the board. That way that was never an option. But we're going to see who lives here.
All right.
The bird.
It is the Damaged Flame Elemental to boot, so not working out for Marquette, maybe getting a little bit too aggressive, but they do find second Vicious Fledgling. Maybe some merit to getting the Henge Clan Thug down this turn instead of the Fledgling, but on average, having your Fledgling down earlier is going to be better.
Ooh, but that's a Dynamatic.
Oh,
and with that card right there, I would almost like to call this game over. I don't really think there's much, and this is why I would have liked to see them potentially think about banning out the Warrior. This matchup is just that bad.
But maybe they're just accepting that with pretty much all of their decks, the Warrior's going to find a win. So they need to just accept that that's going to happen, I suppose, and move on. This is a really clean Henge Clan Thug Deadly Poison. The issue is they just don't have the follow-up, and they don't have the Myra's Unstable Element in the deck to give them that follow-up.
This is a really good Gluttonous Use as well. They could just Gluttonous Use Hero Power and play out the Attorney Moreover. I mean, why not? They don't even need to commit the Reckless Flurry just yet.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about with this matchup. It feels like, I don't know, you're having a party and Marquette wasn't invited and they're mad about it, so they're trying to fight you, but you still win.
I guess that was an analogy for what's going on. I've never heard it put that way. Doesn't seem like a very fun party. I mean, it's Odd Warrior.
Warrior's having a great time. They're playing charades. There's some music happening.
What kind of parties are you going
Everybody's
to?
super healthy because there's so much armor.
What kind of parties are you going to? I'd rather go to the Odd Paladin parties.
Bro, I'm back and forth between here and Chicago every week. I don't have time to party. I barely have time to sleep. Fungalmancer does buff up the Henge Clan Thug and get it out of range of like the board plus just a Super Collider, I suppose.
I mean, they got to do something here.
The Super Collider was still clear because Fungalmancer. I don't know. This is just... Lakehead's back up to 31. This is not a matchup Marquette wins. I don't think there is a sequence of draws that could win them the game.
Nope. I don't think so either. Good talk, Cora.
Okay.
Oh, and they swung out of the order. No. Marquette, not like this. Look, he slapped the guy on the shoulder. He's like, why didn't you warn me?
Bro, why didn't you tell me?
Damage.
Well, if they're going to end up being 1 damage off lethal, then
I don't think
They're
were
gonna
ever
feel
going to be 1 damage.
pretty bad about this.
I think this is the closest they ever got. I think 23 off lethal is more accurate.
Shield block, armor, shield slam.
What now?
Trade the ooze. Hit the face.
Like, if you're feeling real frisky, you could leave that thing up and just faceless it.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa.
I'm just saying.
Just calm down, man. Just calm down.
I'm just implying. Yeah, they're just gonna go for the safe play.
Yeah.
I don't blame them. Oh, there's even Iron Beak Owl in the deck. They could have just shield blocked first. Iron Beak Owl wasn't hero powered. Your turn, Marquette.
Bah, ha, ha. Well,
You can Iron Beak Owl, Vile Spine the 1/3, put your dagger into the 3/1, and then you've got a 2/1 and a 3/4 against a 31 health warrior.
Jace, that's 32.
Like I said, a 32 health warrior. You didn't hear me? Production,
No.
can we get confirmation that I said
My
32?
bad. My bad. You know, them pesky ears.
Production, if I said 32, why don't you go ahead and sculpt out the Lich King on that that ice sculpture right there? Oh no. Oh no. Tommy Trevor, no, don't leave me out to dry.
Chin up, bud. Happens to the best of us. They did it and you missed it, but it wasn't the Lich King. Yeah,
good
it's Iron Beak Owl Vile Spine is all that Marquette has, and I suppose if these minions survive and they find second Fungalmancer,
No.
no?
No.
No, you say?
Yeah, I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna veto all options of the Odd Rogue winning this game, especially without Myra's.
Marquette actually held on to the Iron Beak Owl, which I like fine here. If Lakehead plays a taunt and Marquette wants to attack the face for 32 damage, now 36 damage, then Iron Beak Owl's the way to do it.
No. That is never happening. Do you know they have the same school colors, just reversed?
They do. A lot of blue and gold in the Midwest.
Why is that?
I don't know. My junior high and high school were blue and gold. College was red and black.
Production, you got plenty of time. You can just go ahead and phone with that map. It doesn't matter.
A lot of blue and gold. A lot of eagles. They really like America in the Midwest. A lot of bulldogs. But it's like the same stock photo of a bulldog for every school.
Really?
Yeah, it's, you know,
You know what my school mascot for VCU
it's a strange
is?
place. No, what is it?
The Rams.
Huh.
VCU Rams. Go Rams.
I was a cardinal in college.
Really?
Not a very scary mascot. But then again, we were like a D3 school, so. How scary are we really?
I think VCU's D1, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, VCU's pretty large. I think all of Richmond is just VCU at this point.
Silence the dire horn. I
SI
guess
7 the
kill the
face.
Eternium Rover.
They're trying to find some way to get back in this game. We can just see it's over.
The dire horn can trade over the Vile Spine Slayer. Or more realistically,
They can
dire
just
horn
Super
trades
Collider
over
the two minions, hero power,
dire horn over the owl, super collider the 2.
get themselves a coffee. That's the worst part about playing Odd Warriors. You just can't win the game. You just have to wait.
You've won the game.
Oh yeah, you've
but
won the game, but you haven't won the game.
No. They should probably put in like a Chipotle order. Go pick that up.
Yeah, probably.
Get a smoothie.
Okay. That's something.
Obviously heavily countered by Shield
Never
Slam.
mind. That's
and
nothing.
by Dynamatic off the top. Lakehead can also play Omega Assembly, get 3 more mechs.
Reckless Flurry. Just play 3 Phantom Militias. You name it. I like the ordering here of Omega Assembly first.
Yep, smart. Zilliax, Explodinator, Spark Drill.
Those are some really good ones too.
Just getting Zilliax is absolutely fantastic.
Who wants a hug? I love that from Explodinator because Leopardome says, give me a hug, and the bombs are based off Leopardome. So when Explodinator hits the board, he goes, who wants a hug? Did you ever notice that?
Yeah. Who wants a hug?
I don't think many people at home noticed that. I just love how Marquette is just laughing about this. Just like...
Guys. Okay, Marquette, I'm talking right to you. Look, you're in college. You understand the importance of your time.
What do you mean? They're just milking the camera points. I love it. They're like laughing with us.
Look, it's a Tuesday. Okay, you've got class tomorrow.
You don't know that. You don't know their stories. Maybe they took Wednesdays off because they don't have classes on Wednesdays. Are they even going to faceless the ball?
Usually, if you're not going to have classes, you're not going to have classes Tuesday, Thursday. You're going to have to set up your schedule for Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yeah, you never know. All right, what's the draw? There's no Myra's unstable element, so there is no like comeback mechanism.
It doesn't matter.
I'm just gonna laugh when they use this Leroy to clean up the board.
They are. The Lakehead eventually will kill them. They do draw a card, don't they? Oh, there we go. All right, slight spectator
another
issue.
Argent Squire.
Oh my goodness! I just. It hurts my heart.
There they go.
There is
All
nothing
right.
more hopeless. Okay, there is something more hopeless, and that's being the Control Warrior and trying to kill a Mechathune Warlock before they get you. But that is just the worst matchup in the game for Odd Rogue.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah. Outside of a Hench Clan Thug on turn 3 that can't be countered by a Shield Slam right away, it just...
Or the Vicious
doesn't
Fledgling
happen.
living the brawl.
Yeah, that
I
potentially.
think maybe they could have played a little bit differently in the early games to make them not as weak to brawl.
Excuse me.
But... Excuse you.
I had a tickle.
I think other than, you know,
Still
playing on the brawl earlier on, I think that's really where it could have gone differently.
Had they been a little bit more reserved into playing into Brawl, they would have been able to hold back some resources, but would those resources have made any difference? Like, does playing around Brawl
If
actually
the
win them the game?
lives, maybe.
Yes, that would be the only case. But like you were saying, Warrior has a favorable matchup against every deck that Marquette brought,
Yeah,
pretty much.
I still don't know. Because at least with Priest, the Rogue has a, I would say, maybe a favorable into the
It's
Priest.
fair, yeah.
Or maybe at least a 50-50. So that's why I'm curious as to why they didn't ban out the Warrior. Maybe they just felt like Odd Warrior was a bad deck, and they said, you know what? We're just going to beat it. And you know what? I don't blame them.
Okay, hold.
Maybe just not with Odd Rogue.
It's a bad deck
Awful
in
deck.
a lot of matchups, but it's not a bad deck.
It's a bad deck.
It's not a bad deck.
Don't play it on ladder.
It's not a bad deck.
Don't play it.
Don't play it on ladder,
Don't play it ever.
but it's not a bad deck.
Don't play it ever.
not
Unless
bad.
not even Wild. Not even Wild is it good enough. And you've got good cards.
Oh,
in
it
Wild.
was totally good enough in Wild last season.
No, it wasn't.
Oh yeah, there were totally people playing Wild.
It was the worst
to Legend.
performing deck in the Wild Open tournament.
Yeah, but there were a lot of people playing it to Legend.
Yeah, because they were only playing against like even shamans.
Like the
They would
20 other
still-
people that were playing. Yeah.
They would still lose against even shaman.
It
Don't
would.
play Odd Warrior. It's a bad deck.
It would lose to Even Shaman. I would know. I was playing Even Shaman. All right, game number 2. It's going to be the Even Warlock mirror here. And looking at both of these lists, Marquette University,
They have 2
Honestly-
copies of Doomsayer, which is going to be important.
yes, but other than that, nothing different about this list. For Lakehead, they do not have Doomsayers. They have 1 Gnome Feratu, and then they have a copy of the Black Knight.
The Black Knight's actually really good in the mirror.
Yeah, it's very good. But being able to Doomsayer the turn before your opponent would play Mountain Giant and then have Mountain Giant initiative is the big
Very
difference maker.
important. Especially being on the play, because you need to have that initiative there. They're going to need to find it soon, though. They kept the Twilight Drake, so it looks like they feel like they need some kind of threat. Both teams actually kept the Twilight Drake. I guess it makes a little bit of sense just because it's a pressure minion, and you want to have pressure minions in this matchup. It just can be awkward sometimes. Alright, they're going to want a Doomsayer soon. Marquette does not have that Doomsayer just yet. But Lakehead does not have a giant. Mossy Horror. That is an interesting tech inclusion. We have not seen that for quite some time. They've got a lot of techs in this deck.
Although I will say, Mossy Horror is something that I have been wondering why we haven't been seeing it come back in. Especially with Odd Paladin coming back into the meta now, with Death Rattle Hunter and Devil Snore Eggs being so popular. I'm thinking there's some room in Death Rattle Hunter for Mossy Horror again. Not for people to play against Devil Snore
Yeah, that's
Egg.
what I was wondering.
Let me clarify. I want to see the Hunter playing this card.
I think the main reason it hasn't seen much play is, although Odd Paladin has made a resurgence, you don't even need the Mossy Horror to really beat Odd Paladin. Like, you have so many good tools to beat Odd Paladin that it doesn't even matter if you have Mossy Horror or not. I'm trying to think of what Mossy Horror would be good against right now. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head, so I don't actually like the inclusion of Mossy Horror. I mean, maybe it's strong against Priest.
I think that's fair, too.
For the Moshog Enforcer, that'd be about all I can consider.
But here it's just going to be a battle of Twilight Drakes. No Mountain Giants on either side, so at least it is a somewhat fair fight.
We call this right here the Twilight Zone. Oh, there's a giant. There's a Giganto.
What do you call it now?
We call it the Giant Twilight Zone. Very creative names, I know.
Fascinating. So production has just asked us, what is the thought process behind 4 9s versus 4 7s or 4 6s?
Well, 4 9s are obviously superior to anything else. I mean, the highest you can get is a 410. If you have a 410 Twilight Drake,
you're doing something right.
That is premier. You're playing the game right. You're doing it all right.
Oh,
you got a 4-9, you're still pretty fair off. If you've got like a 4-7, it's like, well, I had to play this for tempo, and I had to play my cards earlier. If you got a 4-6, I don't even know what you're doing. You probably just need to leave.
Look, if you're playing a 4-7 Twilight Drake, you're like, okay, this is fine, but like, Priest could have done this.
Do 4-6 Twilight Drakes have feelings, Tommy? I don't actually know.
In case you guys don't know, our director is named Tommy. He's a great guy. Ladies, I think he's single.
Tommy just came in my ear and just yelled out. Just yelled out.
Dude, you're very eligible.
And Tommy is your next bachelor.
Oh, man.
Tommy, I would have never done you like that.
What? Oh, God almighty. Taunt up the 2 Twilight Drakes. Lakehead cannot afford to just trade over this Mountain Giant because then they give all of the tempo over to Marquette with their Twilight Drake still being on board. So instead, they're going to try to maintain this tempo, putting Marquette down to 12, even though this would activate Hooked Reaver. Doesn't matter unless Marquette has a way to kill this Doomsayer or silence it, which we can see they do not. So this was a really heads-up play by Lakehead. What do you think about it?
They actually can kill off the Doomsayer. They would have to go Defile Spellstone. They can actually get a full clear on the board as well. I'm not sure if they keep any of their minions, so they would have to put the Mountain Giant into the 4-9. They would then have a 1. They wouldn't have a 2. They would then cast the Defile. The Doomsayer would then go to 5 health. They would then Spellstone the Doomsayer. They wouldn't have a clean way of getting through to the other Twilight Drake.
No.
I think they need to do something about this board state this turn. I'm just not sure how much resources they should commit.
That is quite a big commitment. And
Honestly,
what you need to really think about is how much can you keep on your side of the board while also
I think you do
clearing?
this. You Spellstone first.
Because then you can clear the Sunkeep or the Sunfairy Protector as well.
You would clear up.
Well, you would lose the Mountain Giant
almost
too.
everything.
Yeah, you lose the Mountain Giant too.
I'm not sure if you would lose the Twilight Drake. I think you might lose the Twilight Drake with a trade, but the whole board would be clear. But I'm fine with this right here. I actually think this was probably the most optimal here.
You would, I believe, lose the Twilight Drake. So the full board would be cleared, but why would you want that to happen? So this is just better.
Yes, I think this is the appropriate line of play here. You sacrifice the Mountain Giant, but at least you keep a 4-7 Twilight Drake. You need to have something on the board. You can't afford to give a free turn over on Even Lock matchups. You just can't.
This is still more or less what Lakehead was going for. They needed that Doomsayer to force a commitment from Marquette that would hopefully soften up their own side of the board, which then Lakehead could ideally clear with the board and then be able to press the initiative by playing their own threat, and they would gain initiative. That's what that whole turn was about on their side. So Marquette, they still sort of gave initiative back over to Lakehead, and they had to use resources to do it. It ends up being still almost a stalemate for both sides.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, it's rocking a hard place. Shroom Brewer quite nice here for Lakehead. And yeah, they have now found themselves in a pretty good spot. They would have loved to have burned second Mountain Giant, Blood Reaver Gul'dan.
I think the Spellbreaker is fine. Spellbreaker could have been
potentially messy.
So you're looking at trade Hellfire, Acidic Swamp Ooze. You could also just play Dread Infernal and trade. I'm fine with that as well. The question is whether you fit in a life tap or not. I don't necessarily think you need a life tap because I think this hand can get there in most cases. So I'm not opposed to just taking trade and playing out the Dread Infernal. The question here is whether you life tap, and Marquette feels as if they need a life tap.
Well, with two Hooked Reavers still in the deck, as well as now being at 15 life, I think tapping here is fine.
This actually changes quite a bit. They can trade Hellfire and then play Doomsayer. It's going to get punished by the Mossy Horror, but it's an attempt to try and win the board back. So I'm not opposed to that as either. Trade Hellfire, Doomsayer doesn't look too bad to me.
If they feel like they can't get ahead with a Dread Infernal, then the Doomsayer is the play. And the Dread Infernal is just dead on board, so no, they don't gain initiative back for that way.
Alright, I like this.
Nice.
The tap did pay off because it did give them access to this new play, and that's something you just have to evaluate is whether you can afford to tap there. Marquette felt as if they could afford to tap, and they got kind of rewarded for it. I mean, we can see the Mossy Horror here is going to go ahead and clean this Doomsayer up, but at least it's not a Hooked Reaver or a Giant, it's just a 2/7.
True. The turn Lakehead has next, though, is phenomenal. It looks like Marquette may just play Lich King here. Lakehead can then just Black Knight.
No, I think they're going to go for Dread Infernal, Sun Fury.
Okay, then there's Bone Mare, or there's Mountain Giant plus Hooked Reaver. Lot of good stuff that even Warlock can do on turn 8, and Lakehead has access to quite a few of those resources.
Yeah, the Black Knight, you can see how important it is in this matchup. Just having it inside of the deck just makes it very awkward. But, I mean, as long as they're doing it onto this 6/6 and not necessarily the Lich King, I guess it's a pseudo-win, but the issue is what are they going to do for the following turns?
Usually we're seeing Mojo Master Zihi in that spot, but if you're not expecting as much Xeric Priest, or Wall Priest, I suppose, then Mojo Master Zihi isn't the best tech choice. You can find things that are a little bit more consistent.
I'd love to see the Black Knight plus Plated Beetle here. Looks like they want to save the Black Knight.
Well, knowing that there's Bone Mare, the Lich King, Black Knight is better suited to taking those out. It's just a little bit better value, I suppose. And Bone Mare gets the job done. It's also just a little bit more damage on board, a little more pressure this way.
Yeah, my major issue with this one is it does kind of fall behind to some kind of Hellfire Defile play.
True. It would need to be Hellfire Defile and then 3 mana of follow-up, though, which isn't much.
I wouldn't be surprised to see the response Bone Mare. The question is, are they dead if they do that? They would die to something like Hellfire.
Yeah, they would. Just Black Knight would not be lethal, and there's not mana for Black Knight Hellfire. But you wouldn't need that, you just need Hellfire. So never mind.
The worst part about this is I think they need to get the Vulgar Homunculus down as well, as crazy as it sounds. But I don't know if they can afford to, because they want to make sure they have taunts in the pool for Blood Reaver Gul'dan when they summon it next turn.
So far all they have is Dread Infernal.
Yeah.
If they go for the Lich King, they are dead.
So many possibilities.
True.
They Bone Mare and trade.
They're alive.
Just, though.
Just barely.
Dead to Hellfire. But at some point, you gotta do what you gotta do.
I wonder if they're going to tap for it.
They can still play double Hooked Reaver if they tap for it.
They can even hold on to the Black Knight as well. They don't necessarily need to use it just yet. They could also go like Giant Hooked Reaver, but maybe they're worried about some kind of Spellbreaker shenanigans. They did burn one.
They could also go Defile Hooked Reaver and even like a Beetle.
I think you tap first no matter what.
Specifically because there's 2 cards remaining in your deck of probably between 12 and 15 that just win you the game.
Then I think you go Defile, Sun Fury, Hooked Reaver. Oh, looks like they want
They're
to
just
go
gonna
for the
Spellstone. Sure.
That's fair as well.
Push
You
the
gotta
damage
push it
base.
base.
Well, now Hellfire still ends the game. Assuming Marquette can't clear and heal. Blood River Gul'dan does not have taunts in the mix.
And it doesn't gain enough life either. Yeah, it's looking like Lakehead's game.
The only thing that they can see that could keep them alive is the Lich King. And that would be if Lakehead has no source of 1 damage.
It's probably going to be Lich King Bladed Beetle. And just hope. But yeah, they would have to have not a single point of damage, not a single tech card. I don't even know what their hand could be that it would allow for that. It would have to be... There could be no Defiles. One of them would have to be Gen Greymane. I want to look over the list real quick.
Bunch of 2-drops
Blood
that
Reaver
aren't Defile.
Gul'dan, but that's still really bad because then they just get the hero power going. A Lich King of their own. I don't even think it's possible to have a hand that could not answer this. Now that I'm looking at the list, I think they would have to have 1 card that could answer it.
Well, you got to give it to Marquette. They're looking at all of the potential options here and realizing this is the only thing that keeps them alive on board. So they got to go for it. Doesn't matter if they trade or not because Lakehead are going to take game number 2 here and go up to a 2-0 lead. The Black Knight getting some game time. And Lakehead here are potentially looking to be our second 3-0 of the day. They only have Big Spell Mage left. And Big Spell Mage traditionally is quite good against aggro. That's the reason that we were seeing it being brought to tournaments for so long. And actually, it's got a good matchup versus Even Warlock, too. I'm not seeing this going well for Marquette whatsoever.
Yeah, it's 2 aggro decks and an Even Warlock, and it's got Big Spell Mage. I will say, though, that I do think Big Spell Mage is one of those finicky decks that I've never really been a big fan of. So I can see where maybe the Big Spell Mage just kind of falls short.
It's a deck that, in my experience, I've realized I don't know how to play well enough. But if you do, it's, I think, a really powerful deck.
I even think some of the best players, you know, if they pick up this deck, it's still just not good enough. I just firmly believe that. I just think the deck is too finicky, especially with how it's built with, like, double Astromancer, double Mountain Giant. It's a little bit heavier on the top end.
Yeah, I don't really like the Mountain Giant in this build. And in certain cases, I think Astromancer can just be swapped out really nicely for Arcane Tyrant, and then it's just a better anti-aggro deck. But here, Lakehead University have opted to go a little bit more anti-control with it, because this deck also does really thrive against, like, Control Warrior, for instance. Control Priest, it can do a really nice job against, because you can stack armor with Arcane Artificer. But regardless, I do still think if you're going to bring this deck, this is a good situation to find yourself in, and one that Lakehead University are very likely going to see pick up a win in one of our next couple of games. But we are going to take a short break. When we come back, it's going to be game number 3 with Marquette versus Lakehead, and we're going to see, can Lakehead close things out with a 3-0 victory, or will Marquette start a comeback? Lakehead currently lead 2-0 in our battle for the Northern Division here up against Marquette. And we're going to see now if they can close things out with their Big Spell Mage, whereas Marquette still has access to Odd Paladin, Odd Rogue, and Even Warlock, 3 decks that traditionally can struggle against Big Mage. My name's Cora. This is Dr. J. And
Cora can traditionally struggle. That's me, actually. I struggle with words.
Look,
I can't say much.
Dude. I got a bad case of dry mouth right now. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's We just need a humidifier? I don't know.
I don't know what you need.
I don't know.
Maybe a dictionary. I don't know.
Yeah, you want me to take time to flip through the dictionary whenever I want to find a word?
Maybe.
We don't got that much time. Ugh.
This is not looking good for Marquette.
No.
I will say though, this is not looking good for them. Like
if anybody's struggling, it's gonna
it's
be
Marquette
them.
University. They've got 2 aggro decks and an even Warlock going up against Big Mage, and although I'm not a huge fan of Big Mage, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of decks, but
yeah,
with
what
Big
do you
Ma-
like? You're such a negative person.
No, I'm not.
I like
I'm a
Big
positive. I'm a what is it Tommy said earlier?
I like Big
bubbling
Mage.
idiot.
Bumbling.
Bumbling.
And
bubbling.
I like Big Mage. I think it's got a lot of solid matchups. I think you need to have the right meta to bring it, but this is certainly a matchup where had Lakehead maybe done some scouting on what Marquette played last week, then they could realize that Big Mage is a great option for them. And there's
is
not
true.
a ton of hard target control decks that you can play right now. The controlist deck is Warrior, but I think Big Mage has a lot of merit as well. They have a ton of solid AoE.
Yeah, it makes sense in their lineup because they went for an odd warrior, a control priest, and an even warlock, which are all 3 traditionally considered quote-unquote control decks.
Yeah.
So they needed to find that 4th one, and there's not many other classes, besides maybe like a Malagos Druid that could really fit in there. So it looks like they did go for that Big Mage, and as we can see here, Odd Paladin versus Big Mage. Oh, look at the doggy.
Puppo?
Look at Lakehead's dog. They've got a mascot too.
Puppo. Oh,
That is adorable.
looks like a very good boy or girl.
We might need to get the rulings out to see if dogs can actually help their owners in Hearthstone, though. So
It's helping,
100%
it's
right.
helping
Thanks,
me
Tom.
right now.
It's helping.
Oh.
Well, there it goes.
Lift the spirits. Oh, it did a shake. Move your shoulder, dude. Come on.
Ooh, but Marquette's opening hand is pretty abysmal.
Yeah.
It is not looking good right now.
Very, very bad. No one drop.
Even Coin Hero Power doesn't feel good with this hand because you don't have access to Corridor Creeper right now.
You don't have the follow-up. For Lakehead, their hand's actually shaken out to be pretty decent. I don't think you play the Arcane Artificer on turn 1, but I do think it is correct to consider it because Hero Power is looking like that's going to be slotted for turn 2.
They're going to go for it.
They are just going to use this as like a Firefly, essentially.
I don't necessarily disagree with it. Seeing Marquette's hand is going to work out so well for them, but
Second Vine Cleaver, oh my goodness.
it's one of those things where it's a little weird how it should be played. I honestly prefer holding on to it and keeping it, especially if you got Mountain Giants in the list, because you're never going to be able to play those cards if you don't hold on to something like Artificer. So I would hold it, but I don't necessarily disagree with playing it, because if you can kill like 2 silver hands with it and they would have, done 4 damage, that's kind of like healing.
That's a phenomenal draw.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
They have board over Odd Paladin. It's turn 2.
Oh my gosh. Lakehead are going to be able to play Stonehill on 3, Bright-Eyed Scout on 4, and then whatever they pick up from Bright-Eyed Scout can be played turn 5. On average, your draw of a Bright-Eyed Scout is going to be discounted because there's just so much big stuff in this deck. There's so many high mana cost cards. But if they pick up like Astromancer, if they pick up Jaina, if they pick up Mountain Giant, the Lich King, there's so much that can just win them the game.
The best part about it is you can just play it on curve too. Even an Astromancer is just great. And this is just, I feel so bad for Marquette here. They've lost board as Odd Paladin on turn 3 against Big Mage.
They haven't played a minion until turn 3. Sure, they hero powered, but they're just not.
I don't think the Bucket Hat's been powerful enough for Marquette.
I don't think this one's coming back to him. Dragon's Fury as well. Double Blizzard.
That was kind of anticlimactic.
4 mana, 3/4, draw a card. That's a good card.
It's still kind of anticlimactic though. I was hoping to see something like Frostlich Jaina.
I can't tell you the amount of times I've played Bright-Eyed Scout and hit Arcane Artificer. So they should be very happy with this.
I can't tell you how many times I've never played that card because I haven't. I think I played it in Big Druid like a long time ago when it was played, but that was about it.
Yeah, used to hit Innervate with that.
Oh yeah.
Or Naturalize, that was fun.
Sometimes 5-mana Naturalize was still just fine.
That's why Naturalize is going to the Hall of Fame. Just a good card. What does Marquette do to be able to get back into this?
I think it starts with Blessing of Might to get through this 1-3. I think it takes a trade over the Arcane Artificer and then...
Hero Power,
Hero
Acaris
Power,
Veteran.
Arcus Veteran.
Say it with me. Acaris.
Accurate Veteran.
Sure.
Arceus Veteran.
Okay.
Anemone.
We get it.
Speak your peace.
Please stop. Hurts my heart.
I think Zilliax is just going to come down here. I don't even think they necessarily need to go for...
It feels fundamentally wrong to play a Zilliax when you're at 30 health. But also, if you're a big spell mage versus an odd paladin at 30 health on turn 5, with 2 Zilliaxes,
The funniest part
You're
about this
okay.
is they kept Divine Favor in their opening hand, and it's just not going to get value. Because they have the most expensive odd paladin hand I think I've ever seen. Double Vine Cleaver, Baku, and a Frostwolf Warlord. It doesn't get more expensive than that.
Which path to choose?
I mean, they've got to go for it. You got to play to the board somehow.
and just hope that Lakehead doesn't have removal, except that Marquette saw them
Draw a Blizzard.
joust for a blizzard.
I mean, they've got to do it. This is where they need level up. And even that's not going to help them.
Coin Divine Favor draws them a card, draws them 2 cards.
It's an Arcane Intellect.
Yeah. Oh, man.
The question is, do you just play Mountain Giant here, or do you just go Blizzard? I kind of like the Mountain Giant, to be honest.
I think this is a board that you're going to see Marquette repetitively play. And if you're worried about blizzarding this one, you are going to run out of blizzards eventually. So yes, they have a lot of removal, but they do still need to be cognizant of how much removal they have in the deck and playing removal whilst also developing on the board. So I don't mind this Mountain Giant and then just probably playing Blizzard next turn.
I like Mountain Giant. Hit him in the face. Ignore the minions. They play Frostwolf Warlord. You then Blizzard. Hit him in the face. Just get on
You
with your
can
life.
Meteor it, or you could just Blizzard again.
You just Blizzard again. Just keep stalling it. You push 8 damage each turn. Eventually they're dead. But I can see where they'd be a little scared of the board state. If Level Up was a card, I would be more inclined to Blizzard there. But since it is no longer a card that exists in Hearthstone, I think I would have gone for Mountain Giant there. I mean, now they've got a nice Astromancer, though. I just think they need to keep pushing face, because as scary as it sounds, as good as their hand was and as bad as Marquette's was, Marquette has a value hand, and they can get there in the long run.
Yeah, Double Vine Cleaver puts in some serious work.
Alright, here comes the Astromancer.
A 6 mana cost card. There's some really, really good ones, and some not so good ones.
The Rubian Unraveler would be pretty bad.
Yeah, it would. But, you know, something like Karen Bloodhoof, Sunwalker, Hungry Etten. Really good stats.
What would be a good 6 mana card that could deal with the board state? I would say Baron Geddon, but that's 7 mana.
How about Hogger?
Ooh, that's a Hogger.
I think now that you see Hogger, you're trading over one of the recruits.
I think so too, to protect the Hogger. That's insane. That was a good 6 drop.
That's pretty nice. Generally, with Astromancer, your even cost minions are going to be better stat-wise, and then odd cost minions tend to have effects. 5 and 7 are very, very bad numbers to hit, whereas 6 and 8 are very good. Except for Harik the Bat. We don't talk about him.
Who's that?
Exactly.
That's what I thought.
E.
Well, as awkward as it is, I think you have to swing in Hero Power and play a Frostwolf Warlord. Because there is nothing else you're doing this turn.
Yep, Hero Power and play the Frostwolf before you trade over the Bright-Eyed Scout.
Which path to choose?
But then, in Marquette's eyes, you know, Frostwolf Warlord should be able to take a trade on the following turn. They still have Vine Cleaver swings for days. They are taking a lot of damage now, though.
And maybe they just want to play the Firefly and Flame Elemental just to get cards out of their hand for this Divine Favor. I guess that's what they're going for here. I don't mind that. I'm not opposed to that. Then they take the trade.
Lakehead just Blizzard the board, push face for
Push
9,
face for 9.
summon another Knoll.
Hero Power. Now you see the lines.
That's 2-turn lethal.
This is Lakehead's game. Think what could prevent it? Righteous Protector.
Stonehill Defender.
Not even Righteous Protector. You could just polymorph it. It would have to be Stonehill Defender into
Yeah.
something. I think this is game.
into a 5-mana taunt minion.
Oh, alright. Where's Stonehill Defender?
There's
There's a
Tar
Creeper? That does not do it.
Meteor. And Hero Power. Yeah.
I mean, even if they were to find like some optimal taunt minion and could live for one more turn, they're just still not winning the game.
No, they do not live. When a big mage is ahead of you on board the entire game, Marquette did not deal a single point of damage to Lakehead
Yeah.
this game. They never hit them in the face.
Lakehead had the board by turn 3.
Mhm.
And that was
It
all
was
from playing the Artificer and the Raven the Familiar.
I will say, I like that they went ahead and played the Artificer on 1. I do think there is a lot of merit to holding it and playing alongside a Blizzard or a Dragon's Fury or a Flame Strike, but in this matchup in particular, using it as a Firefly makes it more likely for you to get to the point where you can even play those spells. Because this deck does not have early game. Just kind of doesn't.
What would Uther do?
They are still trying to make up their minds.
I think they're also... Oh, they don't have enough mana for the Righteous Protector. Trying to play around Meteor a little bit. But it's not going to matter.
No.
King and Meteor is going to be enough.
Paying the Recruit, Meteor, the Stonehill Defender, and
I mean, even
Lakehead.
Polymorph was enough.
Yeah, Lakehead are going to take this series. Our second 3-0 victory of the day. I do think Marquette queued up with maybe their worst matchup, actually, in this case. The reason we were seeing Big Spell Mage